Hey, I am Jess, and I'm obsessed with all things nutrition, science, and helping you navigate this information while maintaining a deep sense of peace and empowerment in your body. I'm a registered dietitian who started out with an eating disorder and then fell in love with learning about how God intricately designed our bodies to be resilient and so much more than superficially beautiful. I am now a mama who loves to be healthy, not because of how it makes me look, but because of how it has transformed the energy I can give to my family, my friends, and you. On this show, we hit on real talk around the latest nutrition science and body image resiliency, all while balancing it between grit and grace. Think of this as your weekly audio coffee to encourage your empowered eating journey. This is the Fuel Her Awesome podcast. Hey friend, you're in for such a treat today. I just want to backtrack to January of 2023. I was at the gym, and I go to a CrossFit gym, so they typically ask like a question at the beginning of class just to invigorate that community element, which I really love. And so the question in January of 2023 was, if you could have lunch with anyone living, who would it be? Immediately, I knew who it was. Bob Goff. And I am so honored today that he is coming on the Fuel Her Awesome show. This man has such an incredibly unique story, but what's most amazing about him is that I believe he lives out love on a level that many of us, at least me, didn't even have within my wheelhouse until I started learning more about how he engages with those around him. And so I'm really excited. We're going to pick his brain on body image today. And I know you're going to take a lot away. He has so many cool stories. He's a storyteller at heart. And the way he describes shifting the mirror away from how we look onto how we are influencing the lives around us is in complete alignment with what we talk about here on the Fuel Her Awesome show. So if you do not know who Bob Goff is, let me be the one to introduce you. And it's going to change your life because he's incredible. Bob is the author of a newly released New York Times bestselling book, Undistracted, as well as many other New York Times bestselling books. He's written Love Does, Everybody Always, and Dream Big. If you have not read those, do yourself a favor, start with Everybody Always. That's my personal favorite. Go pick that up today. Have a read. It is just an incredible book, and it's one that'll get you really excited about wherever you are in life right now. Bob is the honorary counsel to the Republic of Uganda, an attorney, and the founder of Love Does, which is a nonprofit human rights organization. It operates in India, Uganda, Nepal, Somalia, Afghanistan, US, Congo, and the Dominican Republic. This man is really impacting folks all around the world. My favorite part about Bob is that he is a lover of balloons, cake pops, and helping people pursue their big dreams. Now, I've had the pleasure of Bob speaking directly into my life over the last few months. He was actually a big part of the changes you've seen happening in my life and stepping away from my 13-year job into a whole new adventure, which has been absolutely incredible, by the way. So he is one that has spoken life directly into me, and I know he's going to speak life into you. Let's go ahead and dive into this conversation with Bob Goff. Bob, I'm so glad you're here today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a million. Always great to be with you, Jess. I'm a fan.
You're just the best. Well, hey, your work really centers on the theme of love. And when I think about the work I do, I can't help but think there is so much we can learn from you and the lens at which you look at life through. So I'd love to just hear more about your personal journey and how it may have influenced your view on body image and self-worth.
Yeah. So we each kind of glance in the mirror when you walk by and say, like, do I look like I think I look? And I was actually reading a study that about our voices and that we've never actually heard ourselves. We hear what we think is us, but everybody hears us differently. That's when if you hear a recording or a video or something, you go like, wow, that didn't sound like me. It's because the way that our ear is pitched, like we have a certain way we think we're sounding, and I'm actually don't sound to you like I sound to me right now, which is so crazy. And our bodies work the same way. Sometimes we have this tweaked view of how we see ourselves. We can see something in ourselves that other people don't see. And oftentimes we have a negativity bias. And so we just go a little bit on the negative. You don't look, it's the odd person to look and say, like, looking good.
So true. Yeah,
You'll find some little flaw or something crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're like Velcro to negativity, especially when it comes to like our own perception.
Isn't that true? It's like one of those little pieces of anti-static, whatever you throw in the dryer, and then it sticks to you afterwards. Sometimes these are like words people will say to you. So I can think of this person that will say, "Hey, I think you're gaining weight." Now, in their thought bubble is reading, "I'm being super helpful right now." And so that's what their thought bubble. And so sometimes when somebody says something really lame, then what I try to do is I just lift my eyes a little bit and I imagine this thought bubble over them, and they're saying this is being super helpful right now. And it might be a generational gap. People in a different generation just weren't hip to some of the things. It might be just a relational gap. Some people still need to work on their people skills a little bit. But talking about people's appearance, most people that are kind of reading the room would know that wouldn't be a starting point, nor a
Mhm.
middle, nor ending point. You talk about when you walk in the room, it just lightens up. I feel like it's like smelling cookies in the oven. That is just such an affirming, fair, a way to approach a conversation. But to say, wow, you're a knockout today, like that actually, it just kind of presses a lot of buttons on people that are unnecessary. What do you do when you have people like that say something lame? What old Bob, lawyer Bob, trial lawyer Bob, would want to sort them out. I'd
Yeah,
be
I
like,
bet.
oh, heck no. But new Bob has kind of changed. I feel like I'm just looking for what's in the thought bubble and redoubling my effort to keep some of my thoughts in my thought bubble.
That's so good. There's so much grace in that, right? And it's not like lashing back out at the person for saying something that maybe was well intended and ended up being offensive or pushing our own buttons. Like there's such a layer of grace. And I love lifting your eyes and thinking about, hey, maybe this is just in a different thought bubble than what's going on in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're all the product of some of the people that we've been around. And we're either reflections of or reactions to.
Mhm.
And so I can think of my grandparents, who I am a reflection of. They were just fun and mischievous, just they were just poorer than poor. Yet they had me grow up in a castle, which is so crazy. Imagine that growing up in a castle. Now, to anybody else, it was just a row house in San Jose, California. But they told me it was a castle and they painted it bright pink with white trim
My God.
because they had in their mind that's the color castles were. They said they didn't even need to make their own meals. They were that wealthy. Somebody else made the meals for them, evidently, somebody named Swanson. And they all they needed to do is peel back the metal on the top of these TV dinners. Uh, and when they passed away, I'm sure they had more sodium in them than Lot's wife. But I think there was something that they taught me about grace and joy and how to see things because I felt like I was a kid of a king. I
Mhm.
really did. I just felt like, wow, like I grew up in a castle. And they tried not to flaunt it. They say, don't brag to anybody.
This is our secret.
I Yeah, so I think there's something that we can do. They weren't trying to deceive me, they were trying to engage me. And that would be the difference. Like, what's our goal in the words that we speak? Is it engagement or deception? Is it engagement or manipulation? Is it engagement? Do I want to influence, not in modern day terms, like a 18-year-old that self-describes as an influencer? That always cracks me up. It's like a 5-year-old saying, I remember when I was young.
Right? Which my son does say.
Yeah. But so there's an old adage, finds its roots in the Old Testament.
Uh-huh.
And the idea is that I wouldn't come to your house or anywhere else with no gift. I wouldn't come
Mm.
empty-handed. And so what I want to do is come arms full of the right things to say so we can actually practice on some of those things. And then as we start perceiving other people that way, we can speak that truth over ourselves and our own body image.
That's so good. Yeah, I love how you were a reflection of your grandparents. Now, so many of the people I work with, are a reflection of actually the opposite, right? Like they didn't grow up in households where they were told they were sons of a king or grandsons of a king. And so, what would you say to someone that maybe has a different story already playing in their head from childhood and how they might shift that narrative?
Yeah, there's a sport. It's called spelunking, and it's when you go down a big cave. They do it a lot in the UK, and they'll find a cave and they'll put on their headlights and go down it. Every once in a while, somebody will get stuck down there, and it makes the news on this big rescue effort. But if you go down to the bottom of the cave and think of that emotionally, relationally, that something has put you at a really low spot in your life, then I would say to reach up above and turn on the light and to see what's been written on the cave walls.
Mhm.
And sometimes there's things that have been written on the cave walls by other people that aren't true. And the thing that always amazed me is that the pencil was created 100 years before the eraser was created.
That is crazy.
Well, now that we have erasers, maybe would you look at the cave wall and you just say, what's been written over my life? Some of these inaccurate views or insensitive views or towards this negativity bias. And since we have erasers, why not erase the things that aren't true?
Mhm.
Maybe you could erase some things that were true at one point, perhaps, but aren't true now. Maybe you could say, I'm going to write over some of those inaccurate statements with more accurate statements. And it's not about putting a happy face on things. It's saying, I want to write some truth over some negative or misplaced thoughts where somebody who's trying to get me to do something was manipulating me to get there, even though they didn't know they were doing it.
Right.
To say, I want to write some truth over that. And then maybe in the best sense, make some rules for yourself to say, if I don't like it when somebody says that to me, that wasn't well received. I don't need to like lash out at him. I just say like, I'm just not going to do that. Like I don't speak on speakerphones. It's not a problem. Sometimes people are taking notes when we're talking, and that's totally cool. But oftentimes, if it's just some young people that call and they're on a speakerphone, that I'll find out later when they put it up on YouTube that there's 20 people in the room, and
Mhm.
somehow it just feels weird.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm fibbing. I just say I can't hear you, like I'm getting every third word.
Right.
But if you're able to put your phone up against your ear, like I have right now,
Mhm.
then I'll be able to hear all of it. And so that's just a nice way instead of saying, get me off that speakerphone. Like that's kind of harsh. If you say, man, I really want to hear you and I'm not hearing everything that I want to hear right now, that's just there's two ways to get the job done. And why don't you find the one that has, and I learned this from Sweet Maria Goff, 100% kindness and 0% drama.
Mhm.
So when you think about that, even when it comes to body image, like how we'll respond to people or how we'll treat, well, kindness, not drama. That's what makes junior high school really difficult because it's
We don't want to go back.
100% drama,
Yeah.
0% kindness.
Yeah, we want to move past that for sure. Now, I love this idea of erasing some of those thoughts and actually just like taking them off and even rewriting some truth. But I do think a lot of folks like have some of these stories in their heads that they don't even know aren't truths. Like they have listened to this story for so long and they don't have enough people in their life speaking life into them that they just don't even know it's a lie, right? And so I'm just curious, like, do you have a good litmus test for folks who might like be trying to rewrite this but not even know where to start?
Yeah, I think that's in your words, go back to where it started. Find the
Mm.
origin story
Mhm.
of everything. I'm a big fan. I should have some more hobbies or something, but of idioms like cut to the chase.
Yeah.
That actually, the origin story that was in the silent movies
Yeah.
because there wasn't any audio. Nobody would know what the plot was, so they'd always have a chase scene. So cut to the chase meant like, let's explain by doing something
Mhm.
what this movie's about. And
Mhm.
so if you think of the origin stories of some of the either sadness or depression or miscommunication or an origin story for how you view relationships, like, am I supposed to be the most attractive person in the room?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then what is attractive and what's the origin stories of that? What magazines did you flip through
Mhm.
early on that gave
Mhm.
you this perception of what was dashing. And so some guys, I don't know how it would work for women, but they'll think I need to be sporty. And my only sport is cheesecake. It's always been
So
that
good.
way.
It's a good one
So
though.
yeah. So so the origin story was that I wasn't with the cool kids because I wasn't very
Mm,
athletic. I was huge. I was tall like a building, but just not very coordinated. And I really just didn't want to throw a ball in a net. Like there's nothing
mhm,
wrong with that. I didn't want to hit one. I didn't want to throw one. I just like that didn't blow my hair back. And so if you have I feel lesser than because go back
mhm,
to the scene of the crime. Find the little chalk outline, which is little Bobby Goff or little
mhm,
Jess or little whoever you are that's listening, and then speak some truth over that to say what was
mhm,
really happening here.
mhm,
Because once we say, and then how was that reinforced? What were the things that reinforced that origin stories that caused you to make up then a rule? And so if you make up a rule, then to say, is that rule helpful? Was it ever
mhm,
helpful?
mhm,
So my origin story to think relationally, emotionally is that I'll be rejected. Like nobody will want to hang out with me. And so no doubt some crazy stuff happened when we're all young. And so that was the story. And then the rule is, well, don't go deep with anybody.
mhm,
Why? Because they're going to reject you. It'll just be more painful if they reject actually knowing who you are than if they meet a version of you. And so then if I just become happy Bob and I'm snorkeling in the top 6 inches of all my relationships, that's a guy, there's a name for that, bachelor.
Yeah, right.
Nobody wants to hang out with that guy.
Not for
They'll
long,
hang out with
right?
him for a while, but not for very long because there's
Yeah.
no depth there. And
Mhm,
there's no depth there because I'm not allowing myself to go to depth because the rule is I'm not
mhm,
going deep because the origin story is that everybody's going to leave. So some of the scaffolding, when you think of body image, some of the scaffolding that you made to guard your heart or protect your fragile heart early on has actually later become kind of like prison walls.
mhm,
It was super helpful when you're 8, but maybe at 18 or 28 or 38 or 65,
mhm.
it's not helpful anymore. And I think we need to identify some of those things and have them take a seat. I'm a lawyer by training, which is like, I'm just like the happy guy.
Yeah.
But because I was a happy guy, it's actually really good advocacy to be the happy guy. Because then,
Mhm.
even though if you care deeply, you can come across like, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but even though the subtitle on that is like,
sure.
totally wounded, but just go like, oh yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. So the happy guy then becomes a caricature for who
Mm,
Bob really is, and the same can be true with our body image. How have you seen that with people when they
yeah.
up with a story and then they has come up with a head game to work around that?
Yeah, well, I think you're so wise to say, like, go to the origin story and really get it figured out because I think so often we get so busy in life and we're just doing on to the next thing that we don't even take a minute to look at some of those origin stories. And I love the analogy of the scaffolding becomes prison walls. And I think that's where so many of the folks I work with are meeting me, right? Is that they're in this prison because this is what they know. And they've always known this since they were 8 years old. That scaffolding has been what kept them safe at one point. It's what got them to where they are. And so now they don't know how to have relationships. And then I think it's much easier when you're in that spot. And at least it was for me when I was in my early 20s and really like at this fork in the road. It was like, this is so much easier for me to stay focused on my body image and obsess about my body than it is for me to actually learn how to have relationships or how to go deeper than that 6 inches in the ocean with folks. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to do. But I think one thing that really helped me in the journey was to find people that did speak life into me because I had a hard time writing that narrative myself. I had the eraser out and I knew I needed to erase some of the stuff that I had in my head, but replacing it was really hard for me because it was a blank slate and I didn't know where to start. So I know you say give the microphone to people in your life who speak life into you. And so I started doing that and I thought, gosh, if I'm going to believe the negative story, I might as well give it a shot to believe some of the positive stuff and see what happens.
Yes, maybe the idea of finding really safe people.
Hmm.
Like do a little extra vetting. You might want to air gap some relationships. They're
Hmm.
valued in God's eyes, but they are not helpful in your adventure.
Hmm.
And so you could just say, like, I bless them. Like when they
Mhm.
come to mind, just bless them. That's great. You don't have to think like, I'm keeping my distance from me. Like, just no, that's
Yeah.
the shortest prayer. Just bless them.
Yeah.
And air gap them and
Mhm.
just find some safe people. Like, I want to be Switzerland. Give me a bar of chocolate and a bobsled.
Yeah.
Just, just be Switzerland. I'm not going to be the guy up in somebody's grill about this and that. And that's not go for people of faith. That's not going light on doctrine. It's just going so big on Jesus.
I love that.
I just want to. I think there's what they say. There's humble people and there's people that are about to be. I just want to beat
I
everybody to the
love
punch.
that.
Yeah. So to just be humble and to walk in to say, I don't have this figured out, but among the questions that I'm asking, the many questions I'm asking are these. And so to come as a student, not a
Mhm.
professor.
Mhm.
And sometimes people that enter the room as the professor, they're just super insecure. So the only place that they can do, if they're the professor, then they control the narrative, they control the conversation, they control the people, and
Mhm.
then it keeps them away from doing it's just another set of scaffolding. And
Yeah.
so if you can understand without getting up in everybody's head, but to understand there's probably more going on here than I'm either qualified or able to understand. But to just understand, there's probably a lot of bogeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm fly an airplane around every once in a while, and there's a difference between bogeys and bandits. Bogeys are just people you just don't understand. I don't know which plane that is.
Mhm.
And you can see, is it going to hit me? Because if it's going to not hit me, it's not a factor.
Mm.
And then there's bandits, and bandits are out for you. And so sometimes people walk into a room thinking it's filled with bandits when it really
Mm.
isn't. They're just
Mhm.
bogeys. And so that is just our insecurity, like, oh my gosh, everybody here to get me. And that
Mhm.
could be some of that negative self-talk around body image,
Mhm.
because it's a room full of bandits. And what I'd rather say, it's a room full of bogeys. Like, I don't know whether they're aiming with me or against me or whatever, but time will tell.
Yeah.
And what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do is vet people and trying to keep the safe people, identify them, and
Mhm.
then they're not bogeys anymore. They're friends.
Mhm. Yeah.
I got to figure it out. But if you don't go through some kind of vetting process, then you've got everybody figured as bandits, like that they're
Mm.
actually there to steal your joy or steal your self-esteem or steal something. So let's identify who are safe people,
Mhm.
read the room, and then find just one safe person. You got room around your bed on your last moment or two here for about 8 people.
Yeah.
And so pick your 8. And
Mm.
I think you know that I've sent text messages to my 8 people. I'll
Mhm.
just say, you're one of the 8.
I
And
love
the first
that.
time I sent that message, I got all these question marks back, like, what? I don't get it. But to say, on my last day here, you'd be one of the 8 people I'd
Mhm.
want around my bed.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of neat. And I know I'm on some people's lists of 8. And just
Mhm.
because I'm on their list doesn't mean they have to be on my list. It doesn't need to
Mhm.
be a reciprocal thing. But to find people just constantly, I feel like I'm always interviewing people when I meet them
Mhm.
for a shot at being one of the 8.
Sure.
So somebody that says some negative body image stuff, I just say like, they're on their adventure. If they let a couple things sneak out of their thought bubble, I'm not going to walk away offended. I'm just going to air gap that a little bit. And while they get their ish together, I'm going to go find some safe people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, and it pulls away from because one of the other things I'm seeing in the realm of body image is it's become this battleground where it's like either you're for me or against me. And if you're against me, I'm going to try to make sure you know that you're against me. And it's really become this like I said, this war, and I don't think it's helping anyone that we're
Yeah.
swinging back and forth between like trying to make peace with our body, but also trying to force our agenda on other folks.
Yes. I was in this country that's in the middle of a conflict right now, and
Mhm.
was moving around in this one area, and somebody said like, stop, because it was a minefield. And I didn't know it was a minefield because there were signs, just not where I was.
Mm. Wow.
And so the
Uh-oh.
reason I raise that point is that sometimes when you're dealing with people, you don't know you're in this emotional
Mhm.
minefield,
Mhm.
that you say something, but you can read the room. Like, you could ask permission before you give somebody a hug, or it before you touch their face or something. If I was going to illustrate a point with you, Jess, I would say, hey, would it be okay if I just lightly touch your face to illustrate this point? And if somebody like kind of looked, of course,
Yeah.
actually, we don't even need to do that. Just imagine here for a second. So just that idea to just say sometimes words and touch and all that, you don't need to walk around afraid. We don't want to play scared because then we won't really show up in
Yeah.
relationships. But you can play sensitive. You can
Sure.
say, not over indexing your own concerns about things, but acknowledging them.
Yeah.
To say, oh, yeah, these are always really difficult conversations for me to have. And as best I can tell, here are the reasons. But you approach as a student with palms up
Yeah.
rather than with like, you hold my earrings.
Yeah. 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 And you've done such a great job with this because I would say you're of the generation that was not as sensitive to this kind of
Yes, totally.
discussion. And you've really developed a sensitivity to it. And I think you've done a great job. One of the things you talk about in your book is how you've passed some of this on to your kids. And you have this story about showing them a mirror. I'm wondering if you'd be okay sharing that story with
Oh
us. Do
yeah,
you remember that story?
totally. Yeah, yeah. When
So
the kids
good.
were growing up, we
Yeah.
had this mirror and I would hold it up to them and they'd be like, Dad, not the mirror. And I'm like, get counseling later. But I really felt like it was important for them to hear from their parents how we saw them. And so
Mhm.
we would very often and still like hold up this mirror to say, let me see, tell you what I see in you. And with each kid, to say, I see a woman of virtue. I see a man. And it isn't kind of hocus pocus, mystical kinds of stuff. I'm just telling them what I see in them, courage and bravery and the times that you stick up for people that are getting kind of beat down. I've seen your compassion and empathy. I've seen just speaking words of truth over
Mhm.
people is a really good thing. And then when they left for college, although they always squirmed a little bit when we did it, when they left, they didn't take their trophies with them and participation ribbons. They took their mirrors.
Oh, cool.
And I wasn't there for the second day of college, but I bet you anything when their roommate asked, like, what's up with the mirror? Can you picture them pulling that down and say, let me
Yes.
see what I see in you? And what we need to do sometimes when it comes to body image is flip the mirror.
Mhm.
Instead of telling everybody, which is really a beautiful thing to do, what you see in them, sometimes we need to flip the mirror and see how we're perceived by the world. And if faith guides your steps, how does God see you? If faith doesn't guide your steps, how are you perceived by the people that you trust the most?
Mhm.
But if we can get good at not only showing the mirror and flipping the mirror, then we walk into rooms a little bit more self-aware of what our own growing edges are to say,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, yeah. So conflict for a trial lawyer of all things, I'm just not a fan. So what I tend to do is just change the subject. If you ever hear me talk about sports, you know I'm changing the subject.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, because I'm like, yeah. So sometimes negativity, cynicism.
Mhm.
Sometimes people that are particularly, if their growing edge is how they articulate their thoughts around body image matters. They are more like modern cynics.
Mhm.
Um, the original cynic was a guy named Diogenes. And Diogenes lived in Athens and he made his own clothes. He just the cynics were awesome. I'd sign up for that immediately. They lived a little bit apart from society. He lived in a water barrel of all things, like a really big one. But he would walk through Athens at high noon every day with a lamp that was lit. And when
Mhm.
people asked him, what are you doing, Diogenes? He said, I'm looking for virtue. So I
Mm.
would say if we're trying to change the communication style, the imagery, if we want to hold up mirrors to people, talk about virtue that you
Mhm.
see. That I'm looking for these things in my life, and then make it about them. Like, what are you seeing in your life? Like, tell us some of the virtues you're trying to find in your life right now, Jess.
Oh man, I mean, I think my journey right now is like I've uprooted everything and
Yes,
flipped
you
a
threw the
lot.
whole sock drawer on
Oh
the
my gosh.
floor.
Yeah. And so I think right now it's about just regrounding in what like God has really called me to value most, not what like I've some of the stories in my head have told me to value. And some of that is just being present in the present moment. Some of that is, like you say, be where your feet are. Oh, and
Yeah.
that's a big part of, I think, some of the virtue I'm chasing after right now, and family and my eight, like
Yeah.
being around my eight and pouring into my eight. I think yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
I think that you nailed it when you were talking about just grounding. There's a tradition, it's called Swedish death cleaning. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so what they do, it's not morbid, it's just that in anticipation of somebody's demise, but
Yeah.
don't do it when you're 95 because you won't
Mhm.
be moving around. So just stay on top of it and to kind of do a deep clean and get rid of stuff that isn't serving you anymore, that you're
Mhm.
not using, that's kind of getting in the way. And I think a lot of us have a little bit more hoarder in us than we'd like to admit, that we hang on to not only things, but to words that people have said, and we kind of hoard them and stack them up in our living room. And then we hoard imagery about a different time in our life. I want to kind of talk about aiming for where we're headed, not where we were,
So
and
good.
not even where we are, but where we're headed. I want to
Mhm.
lift my eyes, not to escape the reality of where we are, but to get some clarity about which direction. Otherwise, you end up with like the Cheshire cat, like, where do you want to go? It'd be like,
Sure.
if you don't know, then
Mhm.
any path. And there's actually some really beautiful paths in front of us. Again, if faith guides your steps, take those paths. If you love humanity, and there's a whole bunch to love there, then figure out your next courageous step. But I would say, with these, is anybody's life other than mine going to be better if I do that? That's a great
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
filter. Yeah, when you flip the mirror, that would be a great conversation to have. Some of these things that I'm aspiring to, will anybody else's life be better because of that? And
So
then we
good.
have the dream about what that is, and then the reality. So I've spoken to a lot of people that have like a second home or a mountain cabin or something. They say, I'm getting this so that I could entertain people, or I can give it to people to take sabbaticals. And that's a great story, and it's authentic. Like, they've genuinely thought that. But if you do a quick little audit and say, is it working out that way? Uh,
Mm.
and so sometimes we have these ambitions and we're just not quite there yet.
Mhm.
So to just not to beat yourself up, but to say, hey, is it working out that way? Because hoarders just collect stuff,
Yeah.
which each thing they have a story. And the
Yeah.
story is, I'm going to use this. This is going to be helpful.
Right.
And then if it's not helpful, do a little Swedish death cleaning. Just,
And clean it.
that's not helpful. Let's get
Well,
rid of it.
it's so funny you say that, because I know in your book you talk about like quitting things on Thursdays, and this is a practice you have, which I so love. And I literally quit my job on a Thursday. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
score.
But I think even in a smaller, more practical, and maybe even more effective sense, I took that concept and started quitting some things I was saying about my stories on Thursdays. And I would actually do
Yeah.
a mental inventory of like, okay, what am I saying to myself that I need to leave in the past because it's not a part of who I am becoming? And I love that idea of doing inventory to clear some of that, like the mental cobwebs out of our brain, in addition to some of the physical stuff that we might be working on.
Yeah. And you might say, what's become a distraction to me? There
Mm,
might be a relationship that you were had that was like a really positive one, life-giving. There was like more food for everybody, because
mhm,
it's kind of like, I'm thinking of Stone Soup's story with the little kids. And
mhm.
um, so there was more soup, but then all of a sudden it kind of turned a corner relationally or situationally, whatever it was. And that isn't as life-giving. And as a matter of fact, not only is it not life-giving, but it's actually taking away from some people.
Mm,
And so I don't need to do counter programming to that, but I might redouble my efforts to say, the reason that's bugging me is it feels so different than the message that I believe is an accurate one.
yeah.
So without calling somebody out, I can just say, I'm going to release a whole bunch of positive into that.
Yeah.
And it's not just positive thinking and unicorns and confetti, although I'm a big fan of all of those. But to say, I'm going to actually push back against this negativity in a society. If it's body image things, I'm going to push back against that with some really beautiful habits, with some really beautiful discussions about that, like the one that we're having.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, and I think of like what you're talking about, looking at where you're going and these bigger picture, and does this make the world a better place if I do this? Like if we can actually pack that down into just looking at our health and our body image, it's like really redefining health on a bigger, more beautiful level rather than like what the world is telling us health should be or what it should look like. It's like, okay, how do I want to use my health to serve the people around me or to make the world a better place? And that's such a better or easier way to work on reframing how we see ourselves when we're looking at health through that lens instead of, I need to look a certain way or feel a certain way when I walk into a room. It's a much more forgiving place to be, I think, and it takes a lot of pressure off.
Really does. And so to turn that into kind of like these little mini parables, I teach at San Quentin and have
Mhm.
been there for years and years. And in the yard, there's these guys out there that are just totally ripped. I mean, they've had like 20 to life to figure it out. They're bench pressing tables and each other and all that. And I was talking to one of the guys about if I had like one of those bars with all the weight on me, the bar would be on my chest. And I said, hey, what's something you guys need to get off your chest? And I was with maybe 8 or 10 of them, and we went around. And one guy, his marriage had taken a hit because he'd been gone for so long, and somebody else didn't get along with their celly, and somebody else said something. And then the guy next to me said, "You know what? I've been in here for 20 years telling people I didn't do it." Then he took a moment as if he was figuring out if the people in the circle were safe,
Mm,
and then he says, "I did it." And it
mm.
was the first time he'd actually kind of come clean on that. And I'll tell you, he was the freest guy I've ever met.
Wow.
He was no longer at San Quentin. He was just like, he was just free of some of that stuff. And so sometimes we've been carrying this thing along, maybe a lie, maybe somebody didn't read the room, somebody let something sneak out of their thought bubble. We've been carrying that around and we let it take hold in our life.
Mhm.
And if we could do a little Swedish death clean, say, I'm going to clear out all the rooms. I'm going to get some of this stuff off my chest, not by lashing out at people, but by air gapping people and saying, can be picky about who comes in.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a great couple first steps.
I think that's fantastic. Well, I could talk to you forever,
Oh,
Bob, but
likewise, Jess. I love hanging out with you.
oh, you're the best. I do have one more question before we wrap up for
Oh,
today.
yeah.
How do you like to fuel your awesome? That can be literal or metaphorical.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I like living in constant anticipation. So I don't need to know all the details. I prefer not to know the details. As a matter of fact, just before we jumped on, I got a little email message and it says your flight is able to be checked in now. I had no idea I was going somewhere. So the way about fueling my awesome is to stay really present. So the
Mhm.
people that help me out stay organized. They only tell me what I'm doing today.
Mhm.
That's it.
That's
We
so
haven't got
good.
Alaska Airlines jumped the gun and told me what I'm doing tomorrow. But other than that, living in anticipation is to just be like, to your point about being where your feet are, you can set up some systems and some structures and some ways to say, I don't look. Now, for somebody else, that would be really presses all the buttons. They like,
Right.
I actually need to know a plan. So find out not just what's working for you, but ask this question: how is my life working for the people around me? And I'll
Mm.
tell you, want to fuel your awesome, find out what's working for the people around you. Because
Mhm.
if it ain't working for the people that are closest to you, it ain't working for you.
So good. It's so true. So true. Well, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
You bet, Jess. And thanks for having us all pause for a moment and talk about body image. And because we're going to bump into a lot of people today. And I think your words will make me walk into today just a little bit more heads up.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm so glad you were here today. Let's do yourself a favor and write down at least one actionable item that you can take away from today's episode to start fueling your awesome. Here on the show, we scratch the surface of empowered eating, but if you're looking to dive in deeper, I would love to help you out with that. Head over to jessbrownrd.com. You can check out my free empowered eating workshop. You can take a free quiz to see if your eating style aligns with your values, or better yet, book a discovery call with me to learn more about how to further your empowered eating journey. I cannot wait to be in your ear again, cheering you on along the way. Until then, cheers and happy eating.